Now it's time for the last word with Jacob Soboroff in for Lawrence. Hey, Jacob.
Hey, Jen. Happy Election Day in Arizona. And I do have to say, we're going to watch that race very closely tonight. Just like you said, the polls are closed right about now. But props to you, because your dramatic reading of those spicy messages in the Arizona 5th, I think it is, that was very special. That was special.
You know, Jacob, we have to really get comfortable with saying crazy things on television in the age of Trump. And here we are. You know, we got to bring people the news, even the spicy tweets.
Ick was the technical term.
Yes, ick. A warning, this guy is ick. You know, you like people to know what's coming.
We'll have a lot more on that in the show. And Katie Hobbs is going to be with us, actually, the governor of Arizona, to react to what's happening tonight. So I'm looking forward to it. Have a great night, Jen.
Thanks, Jacob. Have a good show.
Okay, thanks so much. It is good to see you all again. We are staying on top of those results in Arizona. We're going to bring you any updates on race calls as soon as we get them. But we are going to begin this hour with day 144 of Donald Trump's unpopular and illegal war in Iran. Donald Trump sent his defense secretary to Capitol Hill to ask Congress for more money today. Pete Hegseth, along with General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, testified before the Senate Appropriations Committee today. Hegseth was confronted on the unpopularity of Donald Trump's war in Iran, by my count, around 30 seconds after he started speaking.
The supplemental funding request is not a substitute.
90 million people. Your hands are bloody. Of 17 Americans and 4,000.
The witness will suspend until order is restored.
1.5 trillion.
Mr. Secretary, please suspend until order is restored in the hearing room. We will begin the timing clock since you've been interrupted twice.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
1.5 trillion is what the president seeks.
Yeah, so that didn't start so great. Pete Hegseth was asking senators to approve that $1.5 trillion defense budget, which included $67 billion in additional funding for the Iran war. Hegseth also said the cost of the war with Iran is now estimated at $37.5 billion. This is what Politico reports. After weeks of fragile peace and stalled negotiations, the weekend deaths of multiple U.S. service members, coupled with new reporting showing there may be more previously undisclosed injuries, have left White House allies afraid the president is rapidly running out of ways to extricate the U.S. from an unpopular, expensive conflict ahead of the midterms. Republicans close to the White House are also distressed about the war's economic impact on everyday Americans in an election that is expected to hinge on the cost of living issues. Notice reports this. Republican senators are pressing the Trump administration to offer a clearer plan and more information about the Iran war after 3 U.S. service members were killed and dozens were wounded in renewed attacks in recent days. Several lawmakers said Monday that Congress should no longer remain on the sidelines and that the White House needs to explain where the conflict is headed. Those Republican senators today, hoping to have a clearer plan for the war and answers for voters struggling to make ends meet, frankly, got neither during today's hearing. Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, one of 4 Republicans who broke with the party in June, voting to block Donald Trump from resuming the war in Iran, questioned Hegseth on whether the Trump administration should have the authority to continue the fighting.
The administration has made the case that the action in Iran falls under the president's Article 2 authorities, and we can have a disagreement. Reasonable people can disagree about the boundaries of the presidential war powers and have for a long period of time. But I look at the War Powers Resolution, and it's not ambiguous. It requires the president to terminate hostilities within 60 days, absent congressional authorization. Is the administration still taking that position about needing no authorization from Congress at this time?
Senator, I know there's a long-standing legal debate on this particular topic, but we certainly as a department share the position of the White House that we have all the authorities necessary at this moment.
Democrats on the panel also pushed back on the Trump administration, moving the timeline on when the war with Iran would end. in one of the more contentious exchanges of the day, Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia questioned whether Pete Hegseth has been truthful with the American people over the last 5 months.
On day 14 of this conflict, in the second week of the conflict, you stated that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Was that an accurate statement? Yes or no?
Iran's ability to challenge the United States of America at the level at which we're capable of.
That's not what I asked you, Mr. Secretary. You said on day 14, Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and, quote, made combat ineffective. Yes or no? Was that an accurate statement?
What the American military has done to the Iranian military is a historic military defeat.
Will you answer the question under oath? So just to review, you will not answer whether your statement made on the 14th day of the war that Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed and made combat ineffective was a truthful statement to the American people as you sit here and ask for tens of billions more for the conflict.
Senator's time has
But a
expired.
historic and effective military campaign against the largest state sponsor of terrorism.
Won't answer the question.
They never
Senator
get a new
Peters
weapon, Senator.
is recognized.
Won't answer the question. Ossoff is pretty damn good at this. Democratic Senator Gary Peters was even more blunt than his colleague from Georgia.
Strait of Hormuz is still closed, reminding everybody it was open before the war. Prices were lower for everybody until the war. And of course, tragically, people, service members, our warfighters, who we care deeply about, are still dying.
I think your characterization of this incredible effort as a failure is reckless. Shame on you and others who call this a quagmire and a failure, and then you want to turn around and say you support the warfighter. Either you do or you don't.
Secretary Hegseth, if you listen to my comments, you would have heard me say how amazing our warfighters are.
I heard failure. And the word heard, I heard exactly what you said.
I will tell you how I use the word failure, because I use the word failure to their leaders. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them.
Oof. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, Senator Peters said to the Secretary of Defense. The hearing came on the same day the Wall Street Journal released exclusive new reporting. This is what it said, quote, Israeli intelligence believes Iran moved thousands of uranium enrichment centrifuges into tunnels deep inside a mountain last fall, Israeli and U.S. officials say, a development that would heighten concerns that Tehran could reconstitute its nuclear program. Israel passed along the intelligence findings to the United States, saying the centrifuges were transferred to the Pickaxe Mountain site last fall after the 12-day war in June, when American and Israeli strikes pummeled Iran's 3 main nuclear sites. The president, Donald Trump, was asked about that report today during an Oval Office meeting with the president of Lebanon.
Do you believe that Iran has moved nuclear centrifuges into Pickaxe Mountain? And when you say we're not done yet, what is left to finish?
Well, I think that they may have. We don't have it on record. All we do is read the fake news. You know, we see the news is so wrong so many times. So, you know, maybe this one they have right, but it's okay. It doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. You're talking about the centrifuges. Yeah, it doesn't mean anything unless they have the material. They don't have. We follow the material. That's where the action is, and we'll be hitting that area probably pretty soon.
But it appears Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth's plan to bomb their way out of this war is not working. According to the Washington Post, check this out. Iran's government is unlikely to feel significant impact or soften its negotiating position as a result of new rounds of U.S. military strikes like those now underway, according to a new intelligence assessment described by current and former U.S. officials. Analysts at American spy agencies have also concluded that Tehran and Washington are, for now, stuck in an indefinite limbo between peace and war, the officials said. An uneasy dynamic given the increasingly deadly nature of the tit-for-tat hostilities between the two nations. The current and former officials spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the assessments because of their sensitivity. The findings, which have been briefed to the administration, appear to underscore the dilemma President Donald Trump faces in a war that he and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu began in late February. And so here we are, 5 months into this conflict, and neither Donald Trump nor Pete Hegseth can clearly explain why we are at war. Neither Donald Trump nor Pete Hegseth can clearly explain how this war will end. Neither Donald Trump nor Pete Hegseth can promise that no more American service members will pay the ultimate price for this war. But there is one thing. The one thing Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth seem to be sure of. The American military and the American taxpayer aren't finished paying the price for this war. There has been some late-night voting on Capitol Hill, but Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean is rushing back to her office. She will join us to discuss all of this right after this short break. All right, to recap, here is the TLDR for Pete Hegseth's testimony in the Senate today, asking for $1.5 trillion for the defense budget, including the war in Iran. Watch.
You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them.
Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean of Pennsylvania. She is a member of the House Foreign Affairs and Appropriations Committees. I know it's a busy night there on the Hill. Thanks for being here with us.
Good to be with you. We just came off a long vote series, so I'm pleased to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're happy you're here. Your colleagues in the Senate got this chance to question Pete Hegseth today. It was extraordinary to watch. I don't know how much you heard, but if you did, what answers of your own are you still hoping to get about the lingering questions about the president's war in Iran?
I saw very little of it, but I did see Ossoff and Peters, and I'm thankful to them for their very serious sets of questions about the veracity of what the secretary has said. I'll start by saying, number one, I just came from RIMPAC. You know the exercises, 30 nations get together in the Pacific every 2 years to make sure that we are completely ready, along with all our exquisite military. And so I can't say enough about our military, particularly the Navy, who showed us around, including the acting Secretary of the Navy, Hung Cao. Number two, most importantly, those who have died in sacrifice in service to our nation. And if you don't mind, Jacob, I'm going to say the names of the last three that I'm aware of.
Please.
And I don't know that we have all the names, but Private First Class Isabella Gonzalez, just 19 years old. First Lieutenant Tyler Feehan, just 25 years old. Army Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, age 30. These people, they're heroes, they're patriots. They gave their lives in service to this country, and this country owes them and their family an extraordinary debt of gratitude, which is a really hollow thing to say. But thank you to those family members, and my heart breaks for and with them. Mr. Hegseth is over his head. He doesn't know actually what he's doing. He does not know how to lead, and it was very obvious in the testimony today. Mr. Ossoff really pinned him down. You saw it over and over and over again, 14 days into this conflict, a month into this conflict, 2 months into this conflict. Nothing that Mr. Hegseth says sticks as the truth, and that's very much in respect or in replication of his principal, the president. And Senator Peters also obviously got very under his skin as well. The secretary is over his head. We do not have a strategy. That's the problem here. The president has never said a strategy for where this war is going, never asked for the American people to buy into it, of course, never came to Congress, which is unconstitutional. It is Congress who declares war. And I don't say that as just a throwaway. It's actually very, very serious. The founders said they didn't want the executive to be the only one to declare war. They wanted to be the people closest to the people who will actually serve. And so we're in a very dire spot because this president had no plan going in. It was completely reckless. He was guided into it by Mr. Netanyahu for Mr. Netanyahu's own purposes, without a plan and against the advice of those around him.
I want to ask you about some new reporting, Congresswoman, from Axios, because they are reporting that the Trump administration is considering two different options to move forward in Iran, given where things are. One is to pursue a new 10-day ceasefire. It almost sounds just like a comedy of errors is too glib of a way to describe it, aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Option two, launch a massive joint military campaign with Israel to force the capitulation of Tehran. Assess both of those options for us, if you would.
Oh, my Lord. What an absurd breadth of options. What we need are serious diplomats working with our partners in the region. I've had the chance over the last few weeks to meet with the Gulf partners, the GCC and Jordan. This is, of course, before the death of American soldiers in Jordan just this weekend. We need serious diplomats to answer the questions of how do we get to the answer of opening the strait, making sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, of course, controlling the operation of ballistic missiles, and please, God, some sort of humanitarian aid on the ground in Iran. After all, there are 90 million people in Iran. We're not at war with them. We're at war with a regime, and this was a war chosen by the president. So a greater war, option two, a greater war, an absurdity, and obviously ill-considered. We are ill-partnered with Israel on this mission, and that is an ill-considered set of circumstances. Diplomacy, get to peace for the region.
Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, on a late night for you on Capitol Hill, thank you so much for joining us on The Last Word.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you. Coming up, polls just closed at the beginning of this hour in Arizona, where we are watching to see if the Trump-backed election denier candidate will be the one to face off against the Democratic incumbent governor, Katie Hobbs. And Katie Hobbs will join us right here after the break. As we have mentioned, it is election night in Arizona. Polls closed about 27 minutes ago in the Republican primary, and we're still waiting to learn who voters will choose to take on Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs this November. It'll be one of the country's most closely watched governor's races. MS Now has not yet projected a winner, but while the Republican nominee remains undecided, the stakes of the general election are already coming into focus. Since the 2020 election, Arizona has become a focal point in the fight over election denial and those false claims of widespread voter fraud. And Governor Hobbs knows that fight better than almost anybody, because before she was elected governor in 2022, Katie Hobbs served as Arizona's Secretary of State. And Katie Hobbs had to defend Arizona's election system against election deniers like Donald Trump and some of his allies, who repeatedly challenged Arizona's certified 2020 election results. Among them was one of the Republicans hoping to win tonight's primary to take on Governor Hobbs, Congressman Andy Biggs, who voted to object to Arizona's electoral votes following the January 6th Capitol attack and has continued to question the legitimacy of that 2020 election. Joining us now is Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs. She is running for re-election this year. Governor, it's good to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Thanks. What's your message for Arizona voters tonight?
Look, there is a lot at stake in this election. It's a choice between Arizona first leadership and Washington-style chaos. And my very likely opponent after tonight is going to be Andy Biggs, who, as you've already described, is an election denier, who not only is an ally of Trump and refuses to acknowledge the results of the 2020 election, but he went so far as to help plan January 6th. He also helped orchestrate the fake elector scheme that went on here in Arizona. He has sought a presidential pardon for his role and ultimately defied a congressional subpoena. Now, here is what that means. Arizona is one of 7 swing states that will decide the presidential election. And as you described, in 2020, we had a free and fair election because as Secretary of State, I defended the will of the voters. If Andy Biggs is governor, Arizona is the first swing state with an election denier in charge. And the time to stop that is not 2028. It is right now. And folks can help me do that by going to katiehobbs.org.
You have mentioned Andy Biggs' role in that 2020 election denialism. We have not yet made a projection here at MS Now, but as soon as we do, we're going to bring it to our viewers. And I want to ask in that vein that, the president continues to make these false claims. The speech last Thursday was was like a blast from the past about the 2020 election, despite there being no evidence at all of widespread voter fraud. 6 years later, how does that continue to affect voters in Arizona and the machinery of democracy in Arizona?
Well, look, there continue to be actors who are trying to sow doubt in the integrity of our elections, but I know that elections in Arizona are secure and they are run by dedicated professionals who know what they're doing. And I have confidence in our elections. I'm going to do everything I can as governor to make sure that every eligible Arizonan can participate. And we're watching potential threats or things that might happen from great federal overreach and interference. But Arizonans are ready to move on from this. They're certainly not thinking about the 2020 election. They're thinking about the fact that Washington's cost hiking agenda is making everything cost more: housing, groceries, gas, healthcare. And my likely opponent has championed this agenda, continues to double down on it. And I don't think Arizonans can trust him to fix the problems that he caused.
Governor, Arizonans they're definitely ready to move on. I've talked to so many of them and spent some time there myself this year. But election workers still find themselves, I think, in the crosshairs because not only did they face these threats, you faced these threats after the 2020 election, the rhetoric around the denial continues to ramp up. Are you concerned? You must be, about their safety heading into the midterm elections?
Sure. We are working to activate all of our, emergency responders. We've done tabletop exercises. We're going to make sure we're doing everything we can, working with election officials at the state and county levels to ensure the safety of everyone involved in our elections. And I applaud the people who step up every single election cycle to volunteer at the polling places to make sure that our elections can happen. And there is, in America, we settle our differences at the ballot box, and we need people to step up and help ensure that that can happen. They should not be under threat. And it is a direct result of these election deniers who are causing that.
I believe that I've spent so much time on election lines and at polling places in my day-to-day job here. And I think that they are the most civic-minded, many of them volunteers in this country. And it's shameful the way that so many of them have been treated. Before I let you go, I do want to let you talk about affordability, because it is the top concern, if not one of the top, if not the top concern for so many American families, especially in Arizona. How have you worked to lower costs for Arizonans?
Well, this is something that's personal to me. When I talk about the struggles that Arizonans are facing, it's not just talk. I grew up in a family that often struggled, at times relied on food stamps to get by. And my husband and I also have our share of financial struggles. We lost a home to foreclosure, among other things. So I get it. I get what Arizonans are going through right now. And they want leaders who are focused on lowering those costs. I talked to a lot of folks who thought that Donald Trump was going to do that. And instead, my opponent, Andy Biggs, is in Congress voting to support the cost hiking agenda coming from Washington. I'm focused on how we can lower costs, lower people's utility bills, lower healthcare costs. I've lowered prescription drug costs. I've lowered childcare costs. And I know there's more to do. We are continuing to deliver on that for Arizonans so that they know that their leaders are putting them first.
Governor Katie Hobbs, on a big primary night in Arizona, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
As you heard, there are 105 days left until the midterm elections, and Democrats are looking to flip the House by targeting a handful of Republican-held seats, including there's one battleground district that you should know about in northeastern Pennsylvania. It is Pennsylvania's 8th congressional district. Scranton Mayor Paige Cognetti is running to unseat Republican Congressman Rob Bresnahan, and joining us now is Mayor Paige Cognetti of Scranton, Pennsylvania. She is the Democratic candidate for Pennsylvania's 8th congressional district. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
After your 3 terms leading Scranton, you have built a reputation as someone who is willing to take on corruption. You have earned the nickname Paige Against the Machine. How are you going to take that fight to Washington?
I first ran for mayor in 2019 as an independent. Unfortunately, the mayor in Scranton, the Democratic mayor of Scranton, went to prison for corruption, and the local Democratic Party wanted to just go in a back room, nominate somebody who was next in line, and have that be the person to lead the city. I had other ideas. I ran as an independent and won that race. We won again in 2021, again in 2025, making sure that government here in Scranton works as hard as the people of Scranton. We have a long way to go to rebuild trust in government in this nation. Unfortunately, when Rob Bresnahan became a member of Congress last January, he got right to work for himself. He ran on a platform in 2024 of banning congressional stock trading and ended up becoming one of the most active traders in Congress, voting for H.R. 1, voting to gut Medicaid across the country, getting Medicaid cuts for 25,000 people here. He gave himself a tax break. He also made money in his portfolio by selling Medicaid provider stocks and bonds. That is wrong. That's exactly the type of corruption that has plagued this region for so long. This is an anti-corruption region, and we are going to take our fight to Washington.
Do you think your constituents and certainly the congressman's constituents, President Hand, see that? They just elected him for the first time, as you mentioned, 2 years ago. Why do you think the district is ready for a different direction? What are the signs that you're seeing?
I mean, this person did write an op-ed in 2024, his words, sickening to make money on your votes in Washington. And then he goes and starts making money on his votes, trading over $7 million, 640 some odd trades, including very specifically trading during the weeks that he's making particular votes, buying up missile stocks the week that Trump goes into Iran the first time. This is somebody that is there for self-service, not public service. Folks here, unfortunately, have seen this play out at local levels, at the state level. We want to make sure that the people of Northeastern Pennsylvania have someone that cares about them. For my part, when I became mayor in the wake of a corruption scandal, I turned down the city car. I don't have a gas card. I turned down a pay raise. I wanted to make sure that the people of Scranton understood I am here for them. We are working to manage our finances. We've gone from a junk bond rating when I took over to an A-. We've increased housing. We've increased jobs. We've supported our police department, adding people to the force, making sure that we have all the technology we need, over $5 million in investment there. Safer streets right now. There are bulldozers all over our downtown, remaking the entire infrastructure downtown. Public money invested alongside private. That's what we need to do. Cut red tape. We slashed permit fees. We're doing the things that the American people want to do to give their children opportunity to have a high quality of life, to lower costs. We fight the utility companies every time they try to get a rate increase. I feel like I'm at a utility hearing just about every week. This is what people need. This is what they are asking for. We have an anti-corruption agenda that we just rolled out. It starts with a ban on congressional stock trading. It has term limits, a ban on corporate PAC money. It is so important that we listen to the American people. They are begging us for reform.
Scranton Mayor Paige Cognetti, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. And if you want to support our campaign, please go to pageforpa.com.
All right. Thanks. Thanks so much. Coming up, Democrats held what is known as a shadow hearing today to draw attention to the growing cost of Donald Trump's vanity projects. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, who challenged Trump's effort to add his name to the Kennedy Center and won, was there. She joins us next. So Donald Trump has spent much of this year on a quest to reshape Washington, D.C. in his own image. Every single Trump pet project is different, but together they all show Donald Trump's desire to never be erased from Washington, D.C. He demolished the White House East Wing to build a new ballroom. And then ahead of America's 250th anniversary, the president wanted to revamp, that's what he said, the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool, which I got to go see firsthand, and it's exactly what you might think it looks like. For Trump, the project was not about maintenance, it was about appearance. The renovation project has been plagued by problems. It ballooned in cost from $1.5 million to now $16 million. Next, the president's proposed 250-foot triumphal arch overlooking Arlington National Cemetery. It would dramatically alter one of Washington's most recognizable sightlines. Building a monument in Washington, D.C. is normally what has been described as a slow procedural grind designed to preserve the city's carefully choreographed symbolism. But there's new reporting from The Atlantic that you should know about. It reveals the Trump administration is pursuing changes that could speed projects through the historic preservation process, making it easier to leave what it calls Trump's mark on the city's symbolic core. and perhaps Donald Trump's most egregious attempt to remake the city, putting his name right there on the Kennedy Center. Our next guest, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, was among those who challenged the president's effort to rename the Kennedy Center after himself. A federal judge ultimately ruled that the president lacked the authority to make that change, and his name was removed. Today, Congresswoman Beatty spoke at an oversight shadow hearing questioning how Donald Trump is spending millions destroying American landmarks. And this is what she said.
It's about whether powerful people can rewrite history, seize public institutions, and silence dissent. The unlawful renaming of the Kennedy Center is another example of Trump's disregard of the rule of law and our Constitution. I became the face of this fight because someone had to stand up. At the end of the day, it wasn't about fighting for myself. I was fighting for the rule of law and for an institution that belongs to the American people.
Joining us now is Democratic Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Ohio, an ex officio member of the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees. It's good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be on this show.
Thanks. Congresswoman, you attended this shadow hearing today with House and Senate Oversight Committees focused on the failed Kennedy Center renaming. I stood out there. I saw it myself. I saw the tarp that's still covering it, or at least was when I was there. What did you hear today that you think the public should know?
Well, it was important today for the public to know that we had a panel of people, everyone from a songwriter to a veteran to two lawyers. Former Ambassador Norm Eisen was there. And it was important for them to know that we're fighting back, that this is not acceptable, that we do have a Constitution, we have the rules of the United States Congress, and that we also have been victorious in the court system. We went through the whole process for the very first time, outlining from December the 18th to 4 days later when I filed the lawsuit to what happened over the course of the past 3 or 4 months, preparing us for July 31st, which is the final date that the court has given us that the TARP must come down and that we must have a plan for programming.
It is preposterous, actually, when you stand outside to think about why on earth it might still be up. I wonder if you believe or heard anything at the hearing today that revealed information that Congress had not yet previously received or known or was public.
I think what we heard today was from a different cast of individuals, people who have been wedded to the performing arts legally, those who are lawyers and have studied this issue, been before the court system before. So having that support and building hope. I'll tell you what was also told to us. It was the largest number of individuals to have sitting in the audience in the hearing. And I think we broke several rules today. Usually there's no applauding, there's no clapping, but the audience they were so excited, so hopeful, and it was very humbling to me that they were there to support us. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're starting to see, the momentum. People are being victorious in different areas, but it is just amazing. I think the other thing we heard was, while this is definitely about the Kennedy Center, it also builds hope because it is about all of the things that we've been messaging. It's about affordability. It's about making sure that families can pay their bills, housing, and the price of food. And so that connectivity was very strong.
What are the things that you and your fellow Democrats are still trying to learn about the involvement of the administration, their actions as they rename the Kennedy Center and just more broadly at the Kennedy Center?
I think one of the things that we want to make sure is that we are prepared to assist with programming, because here's what we know. We know that those artists, whether it was the National Symphony, whether it was those who had performed there for decades, they left because Donald Trump's name was put on the building, it made it political. They didn't want to be judged if they make a comment in a song that could appear to be against one side of the aisle. But what was also clear is people want to come back. And so we are dispelling what Donald Trump and others are saying, that we won't be able to get artists. That's not true. Many of the artists did not sign long-term contracts in other places. They are excited. The staff is excited. And I think we're giving them hope. And that's been the greatest thing about being here with you and having individuals in the media support us and ask all the tough questions.
Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, thank you so much for being here and for the work that you are doing on behalf of the Kennedy Center and the American people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Todd Blanche's confirmation to be Trump's next attorney general could be in trouble over his refusal to adequately answer senators' questions about the future of that $1.8 billion slush fund. That's next. How do you solve a problem like an apparently corrupt settlement for Donald Trump overseen by Donald Trump's former criminal defense lawyer, now Attorney General nominee Todd Blanche? Blanche's blanket statement is this: the anti-weaponization fund is dead. Okie dokie. So if it is dead, there should be no problem doing the paperwork to make it official, right? Apparently not. Todd Blanche has repeatedly refused to do that. And he did so again today in 400 pages of questions submitted by Senate Judiciary Committee members. And following the hearing, they have just been released. Here's one. Question: will you officially rescind your May 18th memorandum instructing the Treasury Department to direct a payment of $1.776 billion into an account for the anti-weaponization fund? Response: as I testified in my confirmation hearing, the fund is dead. Todd Blanche gave that answer. The anti-weaponization fund is dead 25 times in his written responses. Liz Oyer, a former DOJ official, told senators not to be fooled.
Mr. Blanche said yesterday that the settlement fund is dead. It is not. That is contract law 101. Mr. Trump or his sons could seek to enforce it at any time.
One senator on the committee asked point blank, question: you have testified before Congress that you will not move forward with the anti-weaponization fund, and at the same time, the president has consistently supported the fund. If the president directs you to reverse your decision and move forward with the fund, will you move forward? Response: it would be inappropriate for me to comment on hypothetical communications I may or may not have with the president. That question came from retiring Republican Thom Tillis. Todd Blanche needs every Republican vote on the committee to be confirmed. Politico reports that the Trump White House and the Department of Justice are working to win the vote of Tillis and fellow outgoing Republican Senator John Cornyn, but the barrier to their support is the Trump settlement. Joining us now is Colorado Congresswoman Brittany Pettersen. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Break it down for me. What am I missing here? If the fund is dead, quote unquote dead, why does Todd Blanche refuse to put this in writing?
Because it isn't dead, and that's exactly what Senator Cornyn concluded when he was leaving the confirmation hearing, which is exactly what we all feared. That's why we need the necessary steps to ensure that they can't utilize this weaponization fund, but also the back end way that we've had reports come out that they're actually sending people to get payouts by suing the federal government instead. So there are so many loopholes that we need to be closing right now, and that's why I have that bill.
There are senators, including, as I mentioned, Thom Tillis, who certainly have a bee in their bonnet about this. They asked Blanche about January 6th criminals. Here's Blanche's written response to Tillis. Question: did those assumptions of weaponization victims who could apply for the fund include making payments to people who harmed police officers? Response: it would be inappropriate for me to comment on internal deliberations that may or may not have occurred in conjunction with any official act by the Department of Justice. That said, as I testified at my confirmation hearing, anyone who assaults law enforcement should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Congresswoman, many of them were prosecuted, and then they were pardoned by Trump. And you know, I know that you were so unsatisfied with Blanche's answers that you introduced this bill that you've mentioned. Tell us about that.
I mean, I'm deeply concerned when we think about the corruption that we're seeing from the Trump administration, the fact that he's setting a precedent that not only if you follow him and break the law on behalf of him, you won't be held accountable, but you also could get huge payouts. It's truly unprecedented that we're having this conversation, that there is a slush fund to give insurrectionists, the people who tried to overthrow the government, millions of dollars of payouts from on the backs of taxpayers. So truly unprecedented. And while I know Republicans are not going to support moving this bill forward, it's critical that we bring legislation like this to close every loophole that has been exposed under his presidency.
You know, you also said that you're not just concerned about the money going only to January 6th rioters, but also the people who worked to subvert the election results. There's Tina Peters, for example. We were talking about her last night, a former Colorado elections official who turned, to a MAGA conspiracy theorist, was convicted in relation to election security breach. Talk to me about your concerns there.
Yeah, it's not just about, according to these reports that came out, it's not just people who tried to overthrow the government, the insurrectionists, it's the people who try to overturn our free and fair election. So this would incorporate somebody like Tina Peters. We made sure to write it in that way. Coming from Colorado, such a huge issue to make sure that somebody like her isn't just getting out without being held accountable, but also literally becoming rich off of the taxpayers.
We only have about 20 seconds left, but just your concerns about her sentence commutation by the Democratic governor of Colorado.
Look, it was absolutely the wrong thing to do. It sets the wrong precedent when we're going into this election off the heels of the speech that Donald Trump gave last week. He is setting the stage for continued chaos leading into the election, people feeling like they can't trust our election system, and also him telling people, if you follow me, even if you break the law, if you do it on my behalf, you'll be rewarded. So truly unprecedented times, and I can't believe that we're having this conversation.
Congresswoman Brittany Pettersen, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is tonight's Last Word.